everybody, or somebody. What you're about to see and hear is a result of nagging that I have received from family and friends. Dad, you ain't gonna live forever. Dad, some of us would like to one day have one of our children or great-grandchildren say, let's listen to hear what Grandpa Loran had to say about where he grew up and something about his life. Yeah, he's written it down in different places as well, but we'd love to, Dad, I remember one of my boys saying, we want to hear you. I want to let my kids hear your voice. And so that's why William, the producer of this opus, is making that possible. You're going to not only see me, ta-da, but hear what I have to say about me. About me. Well, let's start in the beginning. I was born in Chicago. Grew up in the northwest side of Chicago. Had a sister, and a mom and a dad, that were the greatest in the world, and 5 wonderful children. And by the way, I hope William can incorporate this picture I have of them. They're all together in one photograph. Lady Loran, Carl, Dr. Bob, Eric, and boy Loran. All 5, I think that I mentioned 5. Eric, did I mention Eric? I think I did. Of course I did. So that's a very brief introduction. How am I different from anybody in a particular way? We're all different one from the other. Did you know that? Even identical twins, my dad and uncle were so-called identical twins, aren't. There's no such thing as an identical twin. Every human being on the face of the earth is somewhat different. I've noted not only our fingerprints identifiers, but the way people walk. Think about it. The next time you see someone walk, their body, the way they do their arms, is unique and different. And so we're all different. I have a good singing voice. I say that in not a bragging way, because I never went to school or didn't take voice lessons. I was born this way, with a good singing voice. My mom had a great singing voice. My Swedish grandmother had a wonderful singing voice. I inherited genetically their abilities. And I'd like to now sing a little song to see if you don't agree. You guys have said, Dad, and you got to sing, you got to sing. So here's a song, and I'm going to just sing one song. Throughout this 45, 50-minute video, I'm going to be singing several songs. And here is one that I'd like to sing right now. Okay, the song I'm going to sing, I think was made famous in a movie. The singer was Judy Garland. I don't remember the Disney movie title, but it's one of my favorite songs, and I've sung it to lots of people. They say, ooh, that's Grandpa. I love that song when you sing it, Grandpa. So here it goes. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are, anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Fate is kind. She brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Is that not a pretty song? I enjoyed singing it for you. Okay, what else would you be interested in knowing about that was unique and unusual for someone to do? Because I did a lot of unusual things, let me tell you. Like, for example, you know, and I'm not going to dwell on it, about the accident that killed my dad and my mom was so badly hurt. I'm only going to say about that because my mom was in the hospital for so long. I was on a loose, I became a truant. I didn't go to school. I graduated from grammar school and I did not go to high school. Did you hear me? I did not go to high school. I didn't want to. And there was nobody going to make me because mom is in the hospital. My father wasn't there to tell me you got to go. So I just became a truant and hung around here and there in many places. And those would be a half a dozen stories in themselves, but I won't dwell on them. Instead, what I'll say, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Marilyn Jean Schmidt. She was the doctor's daughter, the rich gal in our lower middle class neighborhood. And I kept saying to Marilyn as we were growing up, I like you, I like you. We liked each other. But I would say, Marilyn, you should find somebody else because I'll never make anything. I'll never become anything worth, and your dad and you should find somebody else. She kept saying, no, Loran, I like you. And so we had that kind of a relationship. The guys would make fun of me for hanging out. The guys were, what are we? We're 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. We were boy and girlfriend. Well, now I ran away from home. And I decided, what am I going to do? World War II was on. That's what I'll do. I'll join the United States Marines. I was 14 years old. You've got to be 18 years old to join the military. There was a time when 17 years old you could join, but mostly it was 18 years old. I'll join. That's what I'll do. And I found my birth certificate and I had ink eradicator. I forged the birth certificate age to prove that I was 17 or 18 years old, whatever it was. And I went to the Navy recruiting office and said, I want to join the Marines. And they said, okay, that's fine. Fill out the application, blah, blah, blah. How old are you? Let me see your birth certificate. Showed them. Okay. Then he said, this gunny sergeant, tough guy, he said, all right, about 8, 9 days later, come back here and we're going off to Camp Pendleton in California for boot camp. And so be here with a bunch of other, be here. I said, okay. Well, I went back to the neighborhood. I called Marilyn. Marilyn, I've joined the Marines. Loran, you can't. You're only 14 years old. Marilyn, I've got to get away from here. My mom has become an alcoholic and nobody cares about me and I've just got to get away. Loran, you can't go. You can't. Marilyn, I'm going. And so I went. Where? Back to the recruiting station on the date that the guy told me to be there. And here were 15, 20 guys standing around. He said, okay, listen up. When I call out your name, go over there, go over there. There's a bus outside. We're going to get on the bus, train station, California, Camp Pendleton. I don't think any of you are good enough to be Marines, which was a typical thing that they would do, ridicule the enlistees. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he had all of our names on a piece of paper, and he called them out. Jones, get over here. Smith, go over there. Williams, get over there. Nordgren, you get over here. What? You get over here. And he continued to call the names of everybody that was there and told them to get, okay, now go out and get on the bus. And I told you stay over there. You get over here, Nordgren. Everybody's gone. I said, why? Listen, punk. He ridiculed me, called me all kinds of names. And he said, you can't go because your mother called and told us that you're only 14 years old. Punk. I've got 2 pieces of paper here. One is your enlistment form, in which you lied about how old you are. If I send this into Washington, you will be a Marine. If I send this to Washington, saying that you are not eligible because you've lied about your age, this will become invalid. You won't be, but you could go and you could be in big trouble for what you've done, the lie you've told. But I'm a nice guy. I'm not going to send anything to Washington. I'm going to tear it up. And he did that, and he put it in the garbage can. And then he said to me, and now, punk, go home and tell your mommy how sorry you are that she had to do this, punk. And that's my story of how I was a United States Marine for one day. So that's the true story. How did it happen? Marilyn called my mother and told her what I had done. And I asked the Marine sergeant, your mother called to tell us that you were 14 years old and shouldn't be allowed to go in the Marine Corps. That's the story. End of story. Early on in the book, on page 24, in fact, Jayber Crow has returned to his birthplace. That's in the beginning. He left as a young man and now is returning as a very, very older, much older man, and a barber, incidentally, in the little town in South Kentucky, where the setting of this novel takes place. And on page 24, and I'm reading this book yet again, there are these words that I want to share with you because they pertain so much to me at this present time in my life. He writes, in the beginning, life was all about time, not memory. In fact, even death happened to other people. Now I see myself about memory. Very little time is left. What I have now is memory. One day, I'll belong to memory, but someone else's. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a wonderful way to indicate that you're not going to be here forever? And there are those that you love and love you. And wouldn't you want to provide them with things to remember you by? And that's what I hope to do. My grandpa was an immigrant from Sweden. There's a story that is so sad. Should I tell it? I don't want to tell sad stories. I will not tell it. I'll write it down somewhere. But what I will say is him now. Now he's in the United States of America. I won't tell that part of his story. I'll instead move forward to the fact that he's now living in Chicago. He is a factory worker at the Florsheim Shoe Company. And he was a man that was good looking, wore clothes well, and knew it, and dressed like a banker, with a fedora cocked on his hat, on his head, silk scarf in the fall and winter with an overcoat with a velvet collar, and he'd always leave the house with a Chicago Tribune under his arm, and walked in a way that the world said, look at this classy guy coming down the sidewalk, wow. And where was he going? To his automobile, to his chauffeur-driven car? No. Remember, he worked in a factory. He walked the block to the Irving Park streetcar, where he boarded the streetcar with a lot of working guys dressed much differently than he is, to Belmont Avenue, switched to another streetcar, and went to work at the Florsheim Shoe Factory, where he would change his clothes, incidentally, and work in his work clothes. And he would say to me oftentimes, Loran, some of the men I work with, and I'm not going to get involved here with racism or bigotry, but he would hit upon their nationality that he thought was inferior to his. And let's not go there any further than that. But he would say, Loran, them come in and they, you know what, they work in the same clothes that they travel in. Then they stink and they smell and blah, 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 blah. He would talk like that. At the end of work, he would do a little shower, he told me, and put on his nice clothes again and come home. And on the way, he would stop at a tavern. Now, I should quickly tell you, what I'm talking about is at a time when my mother is now recently released from the hospital, where she'd been for 10, 12 months. And she was sleeping so it was more comfortable in the living room in a Murphy bed. You know what a Murphy bed is? Comes out of the wall, and she'd sleep there 24 hours, live there 24 hours a day. And that's where she was, okay? Now, back to my grandfather. He gets off the streetcar on the corner and goes into the tavern, Ed's Place, where Swedes, there were thousands of Swedes in our neighborhood. He would go there and have a drink. And I went there once, and if he did it every time like he did it when I was with him, this is what he ordered. A glass of beer, a glass with a raw egg in it. Can you imagine? And a shot of whiskey on the side. And he would sit there for a good time and talk to all the other Swedes that were gathered on their way home from work. He would then come home, walk up the stairs, and the first thing he would do would be to go into the living room to see his daughter-in-law. Remember, his son has recently been killed in an automobile accident. So Grandpa and Grandma, my dad's parents, came to live with their daughter-in-law and their two grandkids to help the transition of getting well. So he would come into the house, go into the living room, and go up to his daughter-in-law, Irene, and look at her and say, Irene, how are you? Let me take a look at that leg, which doesn't seem to want to heal. And there was a bandage on her ankle, and he would remove it and he would look. Why do I know this? Because I would tally along and I was in the room too, as was my grandma, his wife, who was against the wall with her arms folded like this with a not nice look on her face. Anyway, Grandpa would look at my mom's leg, foot, ankle, and say, Irene, it looks better tonight than it did last night, yeah. But I tell you what, Irene, I go now have my dinner, I come back, and we smoke old gold cigarettes and talk, okay? And he'd have a big smile on his face, and my mom loved him, her father-in-law, her husband's father, yeah. And away he would go, walking in the dining room, heading, and Irene and me, his wife Anna, my mom's Irene, Anna would walk behind him, and she was a big, muscular woman. And he would say with a smile, well, what's for dinner, Anna? And he would say, now this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. She would say, dinner's over. You should have been here at 5 o'clock. You had dinner at 5 o'clock. You could have been here, but you decided not to come. So dinner's over. And he'd say, well, okay, I go to the icebox now, and I fix myself something to eat. And he would head to the icebox, and she would say, oh, Carl, sit down. And he would go, but sit down, I've got something for you now. Now, we had hamburger, something not really special. What would she present to him? This gorgeous T-bone steak with mashed potatoes and gravy, and right? But she was upset and wanted him to know that he should not have gone to the tavern. He should have come home at 5 o'clock. But instead, she fed him very nicely. He would say more than once, Loran, remember I'm 11 years old, Loran, come sit here while Grandpa has his dinner, because we had eaten at 5 o'clock. Okay, Grandpa. And I would sit there. Well, did you have a good day today? He would say with his knife and fork eating. And I'd say, yeah, and I would talk. And remember how he looked like a most prosperous guy, but he despised the fact that he spoke with an accent, and he hated the English language, despised it. That's important for you to know that. So we would talk, and he would talk, and I would answer. He would ask me questions. And finally, he would say, Loran, what have I got here in my hand? What is this thing here? I said, Grandpa, that's a knife. Come on, Grandpa, that's a knife. Yeah, that's a knife. How do you spell it? Oh, Grandpa, remember, he hates the English language. Grandpa, you know how it's spelled. How do you spell it, Loran? K, what did you say? I said, K-N-I-F-E. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't have a knife. I got a knifey. I got a knifey. Why do you have a K in there if you're not going to say it? And why is the E at the end for? Then he would often say, Loran, the telephone is ringing. It's not ringing, but he would say that. The telephone is ringing. Grandpa. Loran, why is there a P in there? You don't pee in your ear, you pee in the pot. And the E, you know how you spell telephone in Sweden? T-E-L-F-O-N. There's no P in it and there's no E in it. Yeah, that's the way it should be. And that was just a little bit of how my grandpa thought about the English language and his love for his daughter-in-law. And I thought you'd like to hear that little story. The Swedes did a lot of stuff. Everybody who's a Christian, of course, celebrates Christmas. The Swedes do it in association with smorgasbord, food in abundance, and a buffet kind of table with very special kinds of food and liquor. It's called glögg. It's a wine drink, very festive, served at Christmas time. It's wine with vodka mixed and cooked with all manner of spices and raisins and almonds, and It's heated, very low temperature and for the longest time. And you've got to have glögg at Christmas Eve before the smorgasbord food is eaten. On this occasion that I remember, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, 7. I don't know how old. I was young. I was a little boy. The gathering, there were dozens, seems like dozens of people, lots of people. And traditionally, the women would go into the living room and sit and pull down their skirts and talk and talk and talk and talk. And the men would go into the kitchen where Grandpa was making the glögg by pouring lots of bottles of wine into a big kettle, along with the spices, including cardamom, very important, in a bag, and put in the wine and cooked and cooked and cooked, and then lots and lots of raisins and almonds. When it was done, we had, and all Swedes have, glögg cups that were only used at Christmas time. Most of them had a little handle, the little tiny cups like this. And the way it was served, you poured with sugar. That lump sugar, when it was almost all ready, you poured vodka over sugar and lit it and poured until the sugar was melted. And that was dramatic, and you watched that, and now it's ready to be served. Now, earlier, my grandmother had said to my grandpa, "Now, Carl, please, this year, promise me you won't have anything to drink. Please don't drink nothing and make foolish of yourself like you sometimes do. So promise me you won't drink any of the glögg." And he said to her, with the guys standing around, "Anna, I promise you, I told you I won't. No, not this year. I won't have anything to drink. Promise, promise." Okay. Now, it's time to serve. He would serve, he would pour all the glasses in a tray, and they would come into the living room with women, and the women would drink, and then they would bring the empty glasses back. And remember, there were 3 to 4 raisins in every glass and 1 almond. 3 to 4 raisins in every glass and 1 almond. And they would come, and nobody would hardly ever eat the raisins. They would just drink it and leave the raisins in the glass. And you'd fill it again, and back and forth and back and forth. And everybody is having fun and laughing, and it's a good time is had by everybody. And my grandmother comes, and my grandpa's drinking a lot, by the way. He's drinking the glögg a lot. And the guys are there, and we're telling stories about Sweden and about this and that. And in comes my grandma into the kitchen. And she looked at my grandpa, and I was in the kitchen with the men. And she said, look at you, Carl. Shame on you. You promised me you wouldn't drink, and look at the way you stumble around there. Shame on you." And she began to cry. And he said, "Anna, don't cry. I told you I wouldn't drink, and I haven't had anything to drink. Fellas, have I had anything to drink?" "No, he hasn't, Anna, he hasn't been drinking." "Well, how do you get drunk like this?" "Well, what I've been doing, when you bring the empty glasses back here, I've been eating the raisins out of the empty glasses." And all the guys start to laugh. "How many have I had, guys?" And I've been counting, said Ole. Anna, he had 142 raisins. That's all he's had, nothing to drink. And everybody's laughing, and she goes walking away and upset. And that's the glögg story. And I thought you'd get a kick out of it. Now, when you have the first glass of glögg, there's a Swedish song called Helan går. And I will sing it. Now pretend now we've got a glögg glasses in our hand, and we're going to have it skål, okay? Helan går, för upp för la 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 le. Helan går, för upp för la la le. Helved, huvud, haved går. Heven, halven, halven går. Helan går, för upp för la la le. Skål! By the way, what I'm saying and singing and what you're looking at is a guy, me, Loran, in the living room of his home in Wisconsin. Hey, I thought you said you're from Chicago. Yeah, that's where I was born and raised, but now I'm in Wisconsin. How did he get to Wisconsin? Maybe I should tell you and you might find it interesting. When I was in my 40s, I had a good job. I was vice president of the remanufacturing company, but things occurred, and a friend encouraged me, Loran, start your own business. And so I said, well, okay. It was a tough decision because I'd been at Ream for 21 years, and I quit and started my company, and in the beginning operated out of my home in Frankfort, Illinois. I had a secretary employee, and my first other hire was my son, Carl. And one of our first clients was the train company, which I did consulting for. I was oriented in the plumbing, heating, and air conditioning business. Manufacturers like the Kohler Company and the Crane Company and others, and Crane and Moen faucets. These were the kinds of, I knew the plumbing language. And so that's what I was determined to do. Start an advertising agency and seek out companies that I could help grow their business that were in the plumbing, heating, air conditioning business. Well, early on, there was just the three of us. Carl said, by the way, Dad, when I said we got to get some more employees and we got to get an office, we can't operate out of the house. Dad, he said, I remember, if not his exact words, let's get out of Chicagoland. What? Let's find some land in Michigan or Wisconsin, out in the country. And remember, Dad, the round barns that used to be built? Let's find some countryside, beautiful land, acreage, and build a round office building. And we'll operate right in the center of it. And imagine like pie-shaped offices surrounding the central office. And we would rent those facilities to a copywriter, to an artist, to a photographer, and so on. And we wouldn't hire them because we don't want to have the burden of a lot of employees. But we'll use their services and pay them accordingly. And that's what I think would be a great idea, Father, a round office building out in the country somewhere. And I said, Carl, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard, but I love it. So within a day or two, it turned out, coincidentally, I had to be in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to do some consulting for the train company. They knew I'd become available as a consultant, and anyway. And I said, well, that's what I'll do. As the Air Wisconsin plane was landing, approaching La Crosse Airport, I began to look around out the window. Wow, I can see a barn there, an office barn, and we landed, and it turned out that the appointment was postponed a day, so I had time to rent a car and drive and look and look and look. And I found gorgeous land everywhere, but the little towns, the little villages, they were kind of tacky and no good bank and blah, blah, blah. And maybe Michigan's better. And I was heading back to the motel when I came into the town of Westby and stopped at Borgen's Cafe and had a little bite to eat, looked across the street. There is Borgen's Realty, not related to the people that owned the restaurant. And I went over there, Lorraine Borgen was her name, and I told her I was searching for land. And I told her my experience. I'd been to all these places from Ontario to Lafarge to Viola, all around. Love the land, but not the towns. And she said to me with her Norwegian accent, she said, Loran, Mr. Nordgren, I tell you, The reason you didn't like those villages, because the people that live there are dirty. They're from Milwaukee. They're from Chicago. They're draft dodgers. The Vietnam War, they come here to escape the draft. Yeah, that's true. This is what she told me. Of course, it's not so, but this is what she said. But where we are now, we are in Norwegian country. All the people around here are from Norway, and we're clean, and our farms are clean, and the land is clean. Would you like to see some? And I'll shorten the story to say, yeah, I would. She showed me, and I bought 350 acres. 150 in the next year, another 200, 350 acres. And that's how it all began. Except this was in the 70s, mind you. And it turned out and came to pass that we didn't do anything. My son decided to not work for me anymore. And I went back to an original plan, got an office in Illinois, Frankfurt, and grew the company. And that's what we did for 20 years or so. But on one occasion, because of business, I found myself in Sweden. The story of why is another long story that I won't tell you of, but I'll write about it. I was in Sweden and visited while there on business shirt-tail relatives that I've learned I had there, and went there and they said, have you ever heard of Carl Larsson? And I said, no, I haven't. Well, he's an artist famous, and sure enough, and he's got a museum. You've got to see the Carl Larsson Museum before you go back to the United States. I went, oh my God, the Carl Larsson cottage or house, which is now owned by the family. He died long in 1918, but it's a museum, the Carl Larsson Museum. He's a famous artist and became famous really worldwide. But his house, I looked around, looked in the ceiling. That's what I'll do in Wisconsin. My business was flourishing. I was doing very well. I had about 15 employees. The business was doing good. And I said, great. I took pictures to myself. I took photographs, books from the museum. And I said, now I've got to find an architect in Wisconsin to help me build a house patterned after the Carl Larsson cottage. I couldn't find an architect. I showed 2 or 3 guys in La Crosse. They went, nah. So I was going to forget the idea when a dear friend who owned an art studio, who was a graduate of the University of Illinois School of Architecture, but he was such a great artist that he never did any architecture. He never did any building. I learned that he was selling his art studio to his employees. Why? That's another story. And he was moving to where? Wisconsin. Oh my God. Menominee, Wisconsin. Oh my God. Lou Heiser, that's his name. Ba 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 ba. I told him my ambition, and he came out with me, the 2 of us, and the story of why this location. I wanted to get away from all traffic. I wanted to get away from noise. And we wanted to get high enough. He wanted us to get high enough so that if this valley floods, the buildings that we're going to build, he said, we're going to be a cottage, Loran, a house. Isn't that what you said? And we're going to have a garage with a gazebo on top of the garage. That's never happened in the history of architecture before. And by the way, it probably hasn't, because we're also in a book called Garages, along with Jobs and other guys that are renowned, that started their businesses in a garage. Anyway, that's the story of how this came about. And we have a house here that has but 2 bedrooms. Isn't that not enough for such a large home? Well, no, because I didn't want all the children to be able to stay here. 10 o'clock at night, go to bed in the cottage. So we built a cottage adjacent to it. and shoo them off to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And we called it New Sundborn Ranch because that's the name, one of the names of the Carl Larsson properties in Sweden, Sundborn, Sweden. And so this is New Sundborn Ranch. And I love it. Lou had contacts with Country Living magazine. They love the idea. The house was featured, as you know. Maybe you don't. In 2 issues of Country Living magazine in 1997, March and November. And they did a book. What? Yeah, they did a book. We'll maybe show you the cover of it later on, of this house and this house alone. It's been on television, public television, different places. And that's the story. I love it. It was 1996 when we had our first family gathering. So the house is about 25, 24 years old. And I love it. I kept an airplane here, foolishly built a hangar down in the floodplain, and one occasion the valley flooded, but not these houses, not an inch of water. But the valley did, and the hangar was built there, and should not have been, shame on me, to build it in the valley, and the floods came and destroyed the airplane. But it was a fun time flying while it lasted, and I sold my Illinois connections and lived here permanently in 2003 and have been here ever since. And the only mistake I've made is I didn't build a house sooner and lived here longer. I fly low over the river and see its beauty and the bluffs on the river. It's hopefully going to be preserved by some good folks and keep it that way for a long, long time. No, forever. Now is love, sweet love. That's the only thing that there's just too little of. Anyway, I just did that because I like to sing, and I like the notion of love and how better this place would be, this place called Earth, if there was more love. I really believe that with all my heart and soul. And so I've sung songs, and people say, Loran, why don't you sing Always? You like Always. And why don't you? So what I'm going to do now is sing a couple of songs. There's one, of course, Summertime. There's a big story about it. I may or may not tell that at this moment, but I will talk about love and sing about it. I'll be loving you always, with a love that's true always. When the things you've planned need a helping hand, I will understand always, always. Days may not be fair always. That's when I'll be there always. Not for just an hour, not for just a day, not for just a year, but always, always, my dears. Dears, notice I said plural, for all of those of you. I love you. I care for you. And if I just wish I had more time to do all the things that I want to do to show you that I love you. A long time ago, a long, long time ago, I was living with my sweet wife at the time and 2 children of the 5 that I ultimately fathered. The kids were, Lady Loran was probably 3, and Carl, first son, a year old. And we lived in a Quonset hut. We were poor, P-O-O-R. A Quonset hut furnished by the United States government for veterans housing. As you know, I was in the United States Navy during World War II, and the government provided for veterans in one way or another. In one way, nearby were these Quonset huts, which were metal huts made into places to live in with isinglass windows, by the way. You couldn't see through them, but light would come through them. They were not very nice places to live, but that's where we lived. And I had a very best friend from childhood named Bob Marquette. And one day Bob came by and knocked on the door and said, Loran, we've got to get you involved in this big Oktoberfest that's going to take place at Soldier Field, thousands of people. What are you talking about, Bob? He said, Loran, the October Festival is going to occur at Soldiers Field. There'll be 50, 60,000 people there to judge candidates, the winners to go to Hollywood for recording contracts and all manner of opportunity to be an actor or an actress. And I want you to compete because you can sing, and that's what it's about. It's singing, and you're great. Hell, you've sung at bars all over, and we've had so much fun with your voice. People say, come on, Loran, sing for us. What does it take? Come with me. And we went down to the merchandise mart where there were cars everywhere and people everywhere, young boys and young girls, I mean teenage and guys in their 20s and girls in their 20s, going to compete to appear at Soldiers Field. And so, by the way, you did bring your music, didn't you, for summertime? Yeah, I brought it. Okay. So we went into the big merchandise mart. There were pianos scattered about and piano players and hundreds of contestants wanting to be the finalists that would appear in Soldier Field. And I got a number, stood in line, my turn, sat down, gave the piano player my music, and he said, okay, and he started to play Summertime, and I sang, Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is, stop. What? He said, stop, that's enough. Gave me my sheet of music and said, next number. And I walked away, wow. I guess he didn't like me at all. That didn't take long. And I told Bob, let's drive the long drive back home. What happened? And I told him. He said, well, you never know. Maybe, you never know. And he was right. You never know because, hey, now we're talking a long time ago, man. 60 years ago? Oh, no, almost 65, 70 years ago. Did I get a phone call or a postcard? Don't remember, but they told me I'd qualified for another interview, another audition, and come and give me a date. And I told Bob, and we drove back to the merchandise mart a week or two later. Less contestants now, but still quite a few. Okay, music, piano. I sang, Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping. And I sang a little longer than that. But once again, I was not allowed to finish the song. He said, that's enough, and he handed me the music. And I said, well, I guess I was disqualified, Bob, but I got a little further. And by this time, in the beginning, I didn't like the whole idea. I thought it was incredible that I would be competing. But no, I said, wait a minute, I passed the first time. I'm a little disappointed that I got kicked off the second time. He said, you never know. And he was right again, because I got another phone call or postcard telling me to appear yet again a couple of weeks later, and I did. And set the music. And this time there were much fewer contestants. I'm going to guess 25, 30 guys maybe, and the same number of girls, women that were over here. And remember, the winners would appear, there would be 3 contestants appear at Soldier Field in front of thousands of folks. The finalists that would be determined on that occasion would go to Hollywood and become movie stars, perhaps, or a radio contract or a recording contract, which was also being offered, all right? So, third time around. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy is rich and your ma, she's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing, and you'll spread your wings, and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there ain't nothing can harm you. With Pappy and Mammy standing by. Okay, I sang the song, and they let me sing the whole song that time. And we stood around waiting for the judges, who were up in an upper loft kind of area. You couldn't see them, but they could see you. And I don't know how many judges there were, but so we all sat around waiting. And all right, we have the winners, somebody announced with a microphone. Okay, male men, number 1. Remember, we're looking for 3 contestants going to appear at Soldier Field. Number 1, Jimmy Jones, yay! Number 2, Billy Brown, yay! Number 3 and 4, we have a problem here. We have a 3 and a 4, and we can only have a 3. Loran Nordgren, yay! William Preising, yay! Okay, we've got to determine which Loran or William, one of them, will be the 3rd winner to go to Soldiers Field. So guys, sing yet again. Well, I'm not going to do it a second time, but I sang my song yet again. Maybe, I hope, better than the other time. And so did William. And now, time waiting for the judges to decide which was it, William or Loran, that will be number 3. And now we have a decision. The judges have decided William is the winner. Well, I must tell you, up until that time, I didn't seem to care, but now I'm very disappointed that I wasn't selected. And when I was moping and downcast, when the judges came out of their place where they were, upstairs, and one guy, short, muscular guy, came up to me and quickly, with a New York accent, said, "Hey, kid, you got a hell of a good voice. I'm sorry you didn't win." And I said, "Well, I am too. Why didn't I asked. I'm really disappointed. I thought I can sing better than these guys. They were all kind of zoot suiters, hip-hop kind of guys, if you know what I mean by that. And I was not. I just sang. And he said that. "Kid, you don't have any schmaltz. You don't have schmaltz. You got to have schmaltz to make it in the music biz as a singer." Schmaltz? Pray tell, what is schmaltz? class, action, movement. You got to sell the song. You can't just sing. You got to sell it. And you don't know how to do that, kid. And you married? And I said, yes, I am. He said, well, you got a heck of a voice. You got kids? Yes, hey, kid, sorry you lost, but why don't you go home and sing to the wife and kids? See you later. And that was the end of my professional music career. You know, I love to sing. And I guess I've got a pretty good voice. I know I have. So it's certainly not good enough to be professional, but I love to sing. And one of the songs that I have heard quite recently that I've fallen in love with, love, love, love. Most of the songs I really like seem to have the word love in them. And this one certainly does as well. I heard it, King Cole, the piano player, the black guy, he sang this song when I heard it for the first time. And it goes like this. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magic day, he came my way. And though we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Isn't that a beautiful song? It's become my favorite, really has. And another one. It's very clear our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The telephone and the radio and the music that we know may someday just be fancy and will go. But oh my dear, our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. Da-dum-dum. My heart will go on, because there's another thing that those close to me in my family will discover what I'm going to do so that my heart will go on and on and on. All right, here we go. Every night in my dreams, I see you, I feel you. That is how I know you go on. Far across the distance and spaces between us, you have come to show you go on. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that my heart does go on. Once more you open the door, and you're here in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. Love can touch us one time and last for a lifetime, and never let go till we're gone. For love was when I loved you, one true time I'd hold to. In my life will always go on. For near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the heart does go on. Once more, you open the door, and you're here in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. You're here, there's nothing I fear, and I know that my heart will go on. We'll stay forever this way. You are safe in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. On and on. Thank you. And I've thought so much about these words in the song, My Heart Will Go On and On, and the whole purpose of this memoir and memory. And so I made a decision. And my heart will go on and on. Many of you know what I mean by that. Others will be told by those that know. Know what? Know what I have done to absolutely preserve these words and preserve my heart. I have determined a way to have my heart indeed go on and on. Well, that's it. That's the story. Some of my life, not all of my life, but some things that you might have wondered about and you have now been given answers. A couple of other thoughts. Love one another, children, for love is all. I think those are words to live by. First entered my life through Carl Larson. Love one another, children, for love is all. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Spend your life, develop a reputation as, wow, she gave a lot, didn't she? He really cared about others, didn't he? Those are things, the dash between those two important dates. The one is when you were born, and the date of when you died, and the dash between them, which is how you lived your life. Is there anything that you wish you hadn't done? Well, there's plenty of time to seek forgiveness and to be remembered as a courageous, loving, caring, giving person. Have a good life. Bye-bye.